Well, happy Wednesday evening to you all. Here we are once again for an amateur radio class. Ham radio. Yes, it's still a thing. And if you've been following along with us, we have made great progress. We're going to be covering Chapter 7 tonight in this book right here. It's the American Radio Relay League License Manual for Technician Class. That's the beginning ham radio license in the United States. This is the 5th edition book, and it's got the current question pool. We actually go over all of the questions and the answers that you might see on a 35-question multiple choice test. That's all it takes to get your ham license anymore. You do not need to know Morse code, although it's still very active and very viable. So if you're just dropping in and you're going, what's going on here? Well, take some time if you'd like. Check out my YouTube channel, W4EEY. Look there for the playlists and you'll see the classes and the videos that we've had so far, and we'd love to have you participate. So tonight, let's get started. I'm going to get you out early tonight, I promise. Let's do a little housekeeping first. Bruce, if you go over to the laptop just for a second. So here is the schedule. So here we are at Chapter 7 right now, licensing regulations. That's tonight. Next week we'll be talking about operating regulations. The following week we'll be doing safety, Chapter 9. That's the last chapter in the book. And we'll do safety in the first hour, and then we'll take a practice test together, a 35-question practice test, and see how we do. You'll grade your own paper. You don't have to share how you do, but it's kind of neat to do this, and it helps practice. And finally, our last class will be on March the 13th. We'll do 2 practice tests together. One in the first hour, take a break, and then do another one in the second hour. And that is the last class. So what I want you to do is to be thinking about where you're going to take your ham radio test. Find an upcoming test session. Use Google or some other search to find a local amateur radio club. ARRL has a Find a Club link that will come up. And in your area, contact them and say, hey, do you give the ham radio tests? Or if they don't, maybe they can tell you who does. You can also go online to this URL, hamstudy.org/sessions. And there they will tell you about local test sessions in your area, plus test sessions that are online only. Now, I don't recommend that you, for your very first technician class test, that you take it online. I mean, there's already going to be enough pressure and enough angst and whatnot. So if you can do it in person, I think you'll be far better off. But you know, it depends on your locale, and if there's no ham club there, well then okay, online is viable. And here's the URL links for the ARRL's Find a Club and the American Radio Relay League's Find an Amateur Radio License Exam Session. So you can go to either of these 2 URLs. And we provide a PDF of this presentation in our handouts section. It'll be uploaded to that area tomorrow for folks. So you can actually download the PDF and the links will be live. And this is hamstudy.org that I mentioned here, where they talk about online and in-person sessions. Now, something relatively new in the last year, before you take your amateur radio test, you will need to obtain a federal registry number from the FCC. It used to be you could take your first technician test with just your Social Security number. They changed that. So it's not all that difficult. There's a URL here down at the bottom that gives you all the instructions, or you can go on YouTube and type in, how do I obtain an FRN number? If you already have a license from the FCC for GMRS or for CB, you probably already have an FRN number. So go ahead and find your license, wherever that might be, and look. Or you can go on the FCC's Universal Licensing System website and look up your FRN number. But the federal registry number is what you need, and you need to have that before you go to your test. And I'm just seeing an error message on Zoom here that says my internet session is unstable. So I don't know if anybody can confirm that. Hopefully you can see me okay. All right. Practice tests. Is it okay?
For a few minutes.
Say it again.
It's better now.
Okay, good. I don't know what's going on.
It's better now.
Good. Gremlins. Glad. Practice tests. I want you, you're getting ready now. We're getting ready to finish up the class. You're okay to start taking some practice tests. And we recommend the American Radio Relay League website, the URL down here at the bottom. And it's free. You do need to sign up just so that they can track your scores as you take the test. You log in and then it knows it's you and it gives you some information about your strengths and weaknesses in the areas. So please take a look at this and investigate it, and I think you'll find it well worth your effort. In fact, I may try to do a demo next week to show you how the site works. Bottom line, I'm just saying, get ready. We're coming up to the end, and we want you to get your license. That's the whole point of the class. So tonight, in Chapter 7, we have 4 sections. They're not really that long, and we're going to get out of here early, and we will not even need an intermission at the break. So let's get started with Section 7.1, Licensing Terms. So amateur radio is an official class of service indicated by the FCC. It is not business band radio. Rather, it's non-commercial voluntary communications. And straight from the 1934 Communications Act, it's for persons who are interested in radio technique solely with a personal aim and without pecuniary interest. I love that. It means money. You can't make money from your ham radio license. That's not what it's all about. The other thing about ham radio, it's an international hobby, so it enhances international goodwill. If you're a good citizen on the air and others are good citizens, it helps goodwill around the world. And another thing about amateur radio, it contributes to the advancement of the radio art. Did you know you were an artist? Yeah, in ham radio, you are. So all of these things are laid down in Part 97 of the FCC Rules and Regulations. Part 97 is exclusively for amateur radio. And here it sets the frequency bands and the privileges of different license classes. It talks about issuing of amateur radio licenses and call signs, including special event and vanity call signs. We'll talk more about that here in a second. It coordinates U.S. interests with the International Telecommunications Union, and it's in the rules, and it's a test question, so whether they're going to do this at any time, I don't think so, but they may, by law, inspect an amateur station at any time. The reason for this is just to look to see if there are any sources of interference coming from your station. It goes back a long ways where transmitters were kind of unusual and could interfere with navigation systems and things like that. So they just want to make sure that you're not causing maybe unintended trouble, for example. So how many licenses can you have? Only one. Only one amateur radio license per person. And if you'd like to dig into these rules and regulations, here's another URL. You can find them at the FCC website, but this is, I think, a little clearer at the American Radio Relay League. It's the entire PDF of all of the rules. And if you are an insomniac, if you're having trouble sleeping, this is what you need to read, because it'll put you right out. It's a lot of governmentese. So a while back, it used to be that you'd get into real trouble with the FCC if you didn't give them your current mailing address. Well, times have changed. They still want your current mailing address on the applications and in their system. But more egregious right now is a wrong email address. If they can't contact you by email, it can lead to the revocation of your operator's license and your station license. So make sure that when you're filling out the application to take the test that you've got a good email address on there, because that's the one that the FCC will use to communicate with you. Now you can go online and change it if you change your email address, but you want to make sure that they can contact you. Otherwise, you could lose your license. Amateur radio licenses are good for a period of 10 years. So when you get your license, so you won't have to renew it for 10 years. If you forget to renew it, you can't operate. If your license has expired, you've lost the right to operate, to transmit. However, there's a grace period of 2 years during which you can go back and say, oh, I forgot, here, I'm going to renew, and then you get your license for another 10 years, and then you can begin operating. The thing is that you have to be in the Universal Licensing System database. When you appear there and it says that you have a valid license, then you do. So that's a key. And the federal registration number, we already talked about that. That's the key to the ULS website, replacing the Social Security number that used to be used for technician operators. And if you and your friends want to form a ham radio club, you can apply for a club station license from the FCC. The rule there is there have to be 4 or more members, and one of them will be named the trustee of the club station. So it's, in this area, there are a number of club stations that sometimes get activated on field day, for example. Here's a look at the Universal Licensing System. It's a government website. What more can I say? It's not impossible, but it can be challenging. But go ahead and take a look at it. And just remember that the FCC for us is the radio sheriff. They're the ones that are responsible for what goes on in all civilian telecommunications activities. The military has their own system, but for civilians, the FCC is the boss. So the technician class license, what we're studying for now, is the beginning license. The general class is the intermediate license, and the amateur extra class is the top license that's available in the United States right now. Now, years ago, there used to be other classes of license, and so you see some of them listed here: novice, conditional, tech plus, and advanced. Were all previous classes of ham license. You cannot test for those licenses anymore. However, if somebody has that, like an advanced class license, after 10 years they can renew it and still be an advanced class operator with those privileges. But they need to take the test, the extra class test, in order to upgrade to the next level. So 3 classes of license only now: technician, general, and amateur extra. Oh my, we've got some questions. Let's go ahead and unmute and let's see how we do. So, which of the following is part of the basis and purpose of the amateur radio service?
Charlie.
The advancing skills in the technical and communication phases of the radio art.
Very good. Yes, indeed. You are an artiste.
Good teamwork.
So which agency regulates and enforces the rules?
The FCC.
Yes, indeed. The Federal Candy Company, as we used to say. No, that's not it. Federal Communications Commission. And how many operator primary station license grants may be held by any one person?
Hey, Apple.
Yep, 1. Only 1 per person. And what proves that the FCC has issued an operator primary license grant?
It's in the ULS database.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's operative anymore. They used to mail you your license in the mail, and that always used to be fun. You know, you'd wait for the postman to come, and finally you'd get it. No more. It's in the database. You'll get an email, but that's where you are. So, okay. So, for which license classes are new licenses currently available from the FCC?
D, technician, general, and amateur extra.
Perfect. That's right. And what may happen if the FCC is unable to reach you by email?
Alpha.
No.
No,
Bravo.
Bravo.
Yeah,
Bravo.
revocation. They'll actually cancel your license. And remember, when you get a license from the FCC, you get two 2 licenses in one, a station license and an operator license. So that's what they're talking about here.
I remember those commercials.
Yeah, me too. So which of the following can result in revocation of the station license or suspension of the operator license?
Failure to maintain your email.
Yeah, it's the same question. It's just asked in a different way. You won't get both of these questions, but you might get one of them. So what is the normal term for an FCC-issued amateur radio license?
C, 10 years.
10 years, absolutely right. You're hot tonight. All right. So what is the grace period for renewal if an amateur license expires?
A.
Alpha.
Yep, 2 years. You've got 2 years. Then if the 2 years goes by and you haven't renewed, you have to go back and take the technician test again. So how soon after passing the exam for your first amateur radio license may you transmit?
C, as soon as your operator station license
Yes,
grant
the
appears in
database
FCC's
is the
license.
controlling thing of the universal licensing system. So, yep, and you'll get an email from the FCC as well. So if your license has expired and is still within the allowable grace period, may you continue to transmit on amateur radio bands?
D. Delta.
No.
No, you must wait until the license has been renewed. So when must the station and its records be available for FCC inspection?
Bravo. Anytime they want.
Yeah, at any time. Now, you know, they have a staffing shortage. They're not going to come out and knock on your door. But that's the rules. So which of the following is a requirement for the issuance of a club station license grant?
B, the club must have at least 4 members.
Correct. All right, moving right along to bans and privileges. So I mentioned that the FCC is the sheriff, they're the ultimate authority, but I also mentioned staffing shortages. They don't really go out. They used to have, you can imagine the little vans driving around, looking for things. They don't do that much anymore. Amateurs police themselves. And so we work together cooperatively to make sure that our frequencies are being used properly. One of the ways that we do that are something called frequency coordinators. These are the people who work with repeater owners. And if a repeater wants to go on the air, you can contact your local regional frequency coordination group and say, hey, I'm in Anderson, South Carolina. I'd like to put up a new repeater. Are there any frequency pairs available? And if you do that and they say yes, and so we will assign these to you, that is known as a coordinated repeater. You have worked with the frequency coordinators and coordinated your repeater. The frequency coordinators are chosen and governed by the repeater operators. So it comes from that universe. And repeaters are on certain frequency ranges that the FCC sets aside and that are band plans, which are voluntary gentlemen's agreements that we say, okay, repeaters are going to be in this section of the band. So this is one of the ways that amateurs police themselves. If you were here in the South Carolina, southeastern part of the United States, the SARA is the frequency coordinator for South Carolina. So if you'd like to take a look, this is their website. Sometimes we don't have the bands all to ourselves. The 70 centimeter UHF band is one example. And when hams have a secondary allocation to frequencies, they must protect the primary users. So we just need to be aware of that. The big thing that we don't want to interfere with or cause any trouble with are radio location and radio navigation services. Those are the things that we need to protect. So if you've got your color chart handy, take a look here. In fact, we can go over to the calculator cam if you want. And the question is, can techs use single sideband, technician class licensees, can they use single sideband on the 10 meter band? And so here is the 10 meter band. here is the key on the color chart, and we see that phone and image is green. And we see here on the side, this is how you read it, it says NT. Novice and technician have an allocation here for single sideband phone. Actually, it's the yellow section here. And so yes, there is between 28,300 and 28,500, this section of the 10-meter band where technician class operators can operate on high-frequency voice using single sideband. So you might remember our old friend, the frequency circle or pyramid that we looked at before. 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz will give you the meter, or the wavelength in meters. Or 300 divided by the wavelength in meters will give you the frequency. I'm just reminding you of this. We talked about it early on in a class because you might have this as an aid to help you in answering some upcoming questions. So technician class restrictions. If you look at the color chart again, you'll see that actually technicians can operate Morse code, CW, on the 80, 40, and 15 meter bands in certain sections, limited sections of the band. Also, as we mentioned before, they can operate in a 10-meter subband. They can do Morse code, radio teletype, data, and voice in that subband from 28,300 to 28,500. Above 50 megahertz, this is where we say VHF starts. The only bands that are divided in any way are 6 meters, 2 meters, and 1.25 meters, also known as the 220 megahertz bands. And 6 meters and 2 meters have small Morse code only subbands at the very low end. So 6 meters and 2 meters, Morse code only at the very low end. And 1.25 meters has a separate subband for data signals for message forwarding at the very bottom of the band. So just be aware that the bottom of the 6 and 2 meter bands, Morse code, the bottom of the 1.25 meter band, data signals only. You have full privileges as a technician class operator, VHF and above. Now, if you're going to operate on HF, you still also then have a power limitation. The maximum power that you can use on the high frequency bands, including 10 meters, is 200 watts. 200 watts average or 200 watts peak envelope power if you're using a single sideband. For the other bands, VHF and above, you can operate the full legal limit, 1,500 watts. And yes, I know bulbs anymore with LEDs don't draw as much power, but assume these are old 100-watt light bulbs. Trying to make a point. All right, we've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again next week when we talk about operating regulations, but when you're calling CQ, which is a general call to have somebody come back to you, we want you to make sure that you listen first, make sure, and then ask, is the frequency in use, or in Morse code, send QRL question mark, and use the color chart. And make sure that you're your assigned band. And this photograph is, well, that's a CB radio frequency. That's not ham radio, so that's out of band. Can't do that. So how do I know if a band is open, Gary? Well, one thing you can do is you can use spotting websites, and this is one that I go to frequently, dxheat.com. It's got, these are called spots right here, where people who log contacts with other amateurs, they're using computer logging software, it'll automatically post the contact here, and so you can see what countries are on the air, what frequencies they're using, what modes. You can filter all of that by the area that you want to hear or the mode, etc. It'll tell you in general the propagation conditions overall. Very handy to use spotting websites to find out if a band is open. Another thing you can do, especially if you can read just a little bit of Morse code, is to use beacon signals. The Northern California DX Foundation, in concert with the International Amateur Radio Union, has Morse code beacons that operate on a schedule on special frequencies. And if you can hear and decode the beacon and you can listen for it and say, oh, that's a beacon from Japan. Oh, Asia must be open. So that's another way that you can find out if bands are open. And a third way is to use something called WSPR, a Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. And this uses very low power transmitters that are identifying themselves and being received around the world. And you can see where stations are being received and gather from this, path might be open to Europe. Better go on the band and check it out. So those are 3 ways you can find out if the bands are open. Okay, more questions. So what is the FCC Part 97 definition of a beacon?
Delta.
That's the Northern California DX Foundation. That's it's an amateur station transmitting communications for the purposes of observing propagation or related experimental activities. And it's a one-way transmission. They're not expecting you to come back to them. In fact, there's nobody there. It's all automated. So which of the following entities recommends transmit-receive channels and other parameters for auxiliary and repeater stations?
Bravo, Volunteer Frequency Coordinator.
Yes, the frequency coordinators. And if you work with them, then you'll get a coordinated frequency pair. And the difference between a coordinated frequency pair and an uncoordinated, if you put a repeater up just willy-nilly and you cause interference to somebody else, you must take it down. If you worked with the frequency coordinator, then you're good, you're golden. So who selects a frequency coordinator?
C, amateur operators in local regional area.
Yes, the repeater owners, yes indeed. All right, so which of the following frequency ranges are available for phone operation by technician licensees?
C.
Yeah, these are all in the 10-meter band, and C is correct. 28,300 to 28,500, and you can see it there on the color chart. So which frequency is in the 6-meter amateur band? Here's where you could use that color, that 300 divided by.
B, 52.525.
Correct. Yes, indeed, because 300 divided by 6 is 50. Yep. And you have to know that the 6-meter band starts at 50 megahertz. It doesn't go down to 49 megahertz. So that would be close, but that's not right. But you're right, 52. So which amateur band includes 146.52 megahertz?
B.
Cheryl?
It
D,
is
2 meters.
Sorry,
so
D.
D,
Why?
delta, 2 meters. This is actually the national calling frequency for FM with your little HTs. If you wanted to talk simplex, this is the national calling frequency, 146.52 in the 2-meter band, or 300 divided by 146.52 would get you in that ballpark. So how many amateurs use the 219 to 220 megahertz segment of the 1.25 meter band? This is the exception.
Delta.
This is, fixed digital message forwarding systems only. It's at the very bottom of the 1.25 meter band. On which HF bands does the technician class operator have phone privileges?
Bravo.
And it's the only HF band where technicians have phone privileges, the 10-meter band from 28,300 to 28,500.
That's right.
All right, which of the following VHF UHF band segments are limited to CW only?
Oh,
This is the other exception.
Alpha.
choices?
Yeah, the 6-meter band and the 2-meter band at the very bottom. So yes, alpha, 50 megahertz to 50.1 and 144 to 144.1 CW only. And how are U.S. amateurs restricted in segments of bands where the amateur radio service is secondary?
A alpha.
Yes, you have to protect the other users by not interfering with them. So what is the maximum peak envelope power for the output for the technician class operators in their HF band segments? How many light bulbs?
200 watts.
Yes, 2 light bulbs in HF. And except for some specific restrictions, what is the maximum peak envelope power for technician class operators using frequencies above 30 megahertz?
1,500 awesome watts.
Yes, 15 light bulbs. Yay. Okay, we're moving right along. Some international rules we'll talk about next. So we talked about the American Radio Relay League is the organization of amateur radio operators in the United States. And the FCC is our National Civilian Telecommunications Agency. Well, there's international equivalents, and the ITU, or the International Telecommunications Union, is the global coordinating body for civilian telecommunications, and they're based in Geneva, Switzerland. They're part of the United Nations. I'm going to go ahead and push mute here because we'll get a little background noise there. But you can always unmute when you need to. All right. So they're part of the UN, and they're in Geneva, and they set the global rules that the other national organizations like the FCC coordinate with them. And the ITU has established regions for the world, and so since they're in Geneva, since they're in Europe, they just said, okay, we're region 1. We're number 1. Okay, all right. And you follow the sun. Region 2 is North America, South America, Central America. And Region 3 is Asia, the Pacific, Oceania. So 1, 2, and 3 are the ITU regions. Not much used except for contesting are also some ITU zones. You don't need to know this for the class, but I just wanted you to be aware if you see it on a map. So the thing about ITU Region 1, 2, and 3 is that for some bands, the frequency allocations may be different. In Region 1, you're allowed to use a single sideband voice in the low part of the 40-meter band. You can't do that here in the United States. So in different ITU regions, you have to follow different rules. Some U.S. territories, the Marianas Islands, Guam, etc., are outside of Region 2. So they have to follow the ITU regional plan. Other radio services may share amateur radio frequencies, and in some cases, amateurs may be secondary users based on the ITU allocations. You may operate your amateur radio transmitter in a foreign country. However, it must be authorized by that country. And it could be a specific grant of a license, or it could be a treaty that is in place. There's the CEPT treaty that allows us to operate in Europe, for example. You just have to bring some supporting paperwork, and that's all you have to do, and then you could operate overseas in Europe. In international waters, on a U.S. flag vessel, U.S. licensed amateurs may operate with the captain's permission. So don't think you're going to go on a cruise. First off, it's probably not a U.S. flag vessel, but you got to have the captain's permission. And then wherever the boat is, or the ship, or whatever you want to call it, that location's ITU region, those frequency allocations apply. So just be aware of this. Here's the generally permitted communications that go on in amateur radio. Communications incidental to the purposes of the amateur radio service and remarks of a personal nature. That's it. No business communications, no, whatever. Prohibited communications. Yes, it has happened that some countries have prohibited amateur radio, and it occurs, the country will inform the International Telecommunications Union that amateur radio communications are prohibited with their country. Now, right now there's only one country that everybody wants to make contact with in the amateur radio spectrum. That's North Korea. But North Korea does not, at the present time, issue amateur radio licenses. So while there's no strict prohibition, there's nobody to talk to there at this time. But we'll talk more about that here in just a sec. We mentioned on the U.S. flag vessel in international waters with the permission of the captain, you can operate. Okay, this got out of order. So one thing that I love about amateur radio is oh, sorry, I did that to you, Bruce. You can take me out of the corner there. I'm double. There we go. Okay. I love amateur radio because when you go to ham fests, especially big ones, like if you went to Hamcation down in Orlando, Florida, or upcoming in May is Hamvention in Xenia, Ohio, or we used to say Dayton, Ohio. There's also a big one in Europe, Friedrichshafen. You go to one of these major ham radio events, and you can see and meet your heroes. People that you may have read about in the magazines, people that have accomplishments that just boggles the mind. So there is one amateur radio operator who's been around for a long time. He's from Finland. His name is Marty Lane. And Marty used to work for, he's retired now, but he used to work for Nokia, cell phone company. And he used to work with other post and telecommunications in the various countries that he would be in installing new cell systems and getting them up and running. And so this is Marty here on the right. And he installed cell systems in North Korea. And I don't know, but he got permission to operate. And so this was his QSL card from North Korea. It would be very prized right now if you were one of those folks to get one of these cards or have one of these cards in your possession. He's not operating from there anymore, but he was at the Friedrichshafen Hamfest a number of years ago, and I happened to be there, and at the airport, look who I ran into. One of my heroes, Marty Lane. It was kind of cool. All right, more questions. What types of international communications are an FCC licensed amateur radio station permitted to make?
A.
Alpha.
Yeah, communications incidental to the purposes of amateur radio and remarks of a personal nature, a personal character. And from which of the following locations may an FCC licensed amateur station transmit?
D.
D. With the permission of the vessel's captain, from any vessel or craft located in international waters and documented or registered in the U.S. With which countries are FCC licensed amateur radio stations prohibited from exchanging communications?
A.
Yes, indeed, any country whose administration has notified the ITU that it objects to such communications. All right, we're on to the last section. This is an interesting one, call signs, because when you pass your test, and you will pass your test, the FCC will issue you a new call sign. You don't have any choice. They'll give you one that's in the next sequence of events. So amateur call signs always have what we call a prefix and a suffix separated by a region number. So here's my call sign. Here's my prefix, W, or some people would say W4 is my prefix. And my suffix is EEY. So, okay, not bad. The story behind this is my ham radio instructor, one of my ham radio instructors, Paul Woodland, back in Midland, Michigan, his call sign was Whiskey 8 Echo Echo Yankee. And it was at his house for the very first time that I heard a single sideband communication between his station and hams in Germany. And and this was back in the day when it was very expensive to make long distance phone calls. And here he was talking to these German people in English for free. Wow! I had to have some of that. So later on, I decided, I might want to update my call sign. I wonder if Paul's call sign is available. Yeah, he had passed away. He was an instructor. He was a noted instructor, actually. He won the ARRL award one year. But he had passed away, and his call sign was there. And I said, I want it. And so I applied for it under the Vanity Call Sign Program. We'll talk about that here in a second. And no one else applied for it, so I got it. So for years, I was Whiskey 8 Echo Echo Yankee in honor of Paul Woodland bringing his call sign back on the air. But when finally I moved down here to South Carolina and talking with guys on the air, there was one guy here in Anderson County that always used to call me W4EEY. And I'd say, no, Dave, it's W8EEY. Well, then in contests, it's better if your call sign reflects your location because people know where to point their antennas. 8 land is up like toward Michigan. I don't want them pointing up there. I want them pointing down here to South Carolina. So I looked on a website I'm going to show you here in a second, and W4EEY was available. So I didn't tell anybody. I just applied for it. And about 4 to 6 weeks later, the FCC approved. And so next time I got on the air and Dave was there, I called him and said, hey, Dave, here is Whiskey 4 Echo Echo Yankee. So that's a true story. That's what we got. So that's how I got the call sign, Echo Echo Yankee. Shorter call signs are the ones that are sought after because in contests, you want to keep communications as brief as possible. So a 1x2, like a Whiskey 4 Echo Echo, would be a very short call sign. Or NU4E would be a short call sign because it doesn't have all that many characters. New hams, you, will likely get a 2x3 call sign. And at the time that I prepared this PowerPoint, KQ4PUV was the next one up here in this area. I think it's gone beyond that now. So you will get a 2x3 call sign. Then later on, using the Vanity Call Sign Program, if you decide you want to, you could pick your own call sign if it's available. And you can use this website, AE7Q. It's a wonderful resource for amateur radio operators that you can type in, I wonder if this call sign, with my initials or something is available, and you can find out, no, it's taken. Okay, what about this one? Oh, that one's available. Shorter call signs, though, are going to be very popular. So, and as a technician, you can't get a shorter call sign yet, but I'm just warning you that what happens if there's a popular call sign and there's 20 or 30 people that have applied for it, it's a lottery. They pick a name out of the hat or whatever, and only one lucky person gets that call sign. That's how that's decided. So technicians may select call signs in the Vanity Call Sign Program from groups C or D. So you can select either the 2x3, which is what you're going to get anyway from the FCC, or a 1x3 like mine. And you could do that. This is not a valid call sign because this has too many letters. Club stations can also apply under the Vanity Call Sign Program, but only the trustee of the club station may apply. And remember that the club must have at least 4 members. And this is the logo for the Greer Amateur Radio Club, one of the clubs I'm a member of. And special event stations may be issued special call signs for a limited period of time. I think they've discontinued this, but it used to be an annual event, the Route 66, or Route 66, where they'd have a number of special stations, one by ones, W6A through W6H or something like that, I don't know. And you try to work them all on the air. It was kind of fun. The FCC will issue these for a limited period of time. But if you or your club has a special event that you'd like to commemorate but with using one of these one-by-one call signs, it's possible. You can apply and get one of these vanity call signs for your special event. You can't keep it. It's only good for a certain period of time. All right, last questions. I told you I was going to get you out here early. So who may select a desired call sign under the vanity call sign rules?
Delta.
Yeah, any licensed amateur can take part in this. And which of the following is a valid technician class call sign format?
Alpha.
A 2 by 3, that's what this is. KF, that's 2 by 3. These would be reserved for extra class operators. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Chapter 7. You made it. I'm so proud of you. 46 minutes, not bad. Any final questions before we get out of here tonight? They're not so chatty tonight.
I got one for you, Gary.
Yes, please.
The last time I messed with radios was in the early to mid 70s.
Right?
Back when CBs were a big thing.
Sure.
And they used to call the guys in the little black vans Charlie. Recently, I got a hold of a 40-channel handheld from my father-in-law's house that he moved out of.
Right.
And I went to channel 19 on the way back to my home in Arizona.
Right.
And there was hardly any traffic on that.
Yeah, I don't know the current status of Citizens Band. I mean, it's still in use. It's still a service from the FCC. Channel 19 used to be the emergency frequency, if I'm not mistaken.
No, 19 was a truckers.
Oh, 19 was truckers.
9 was emergency.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
But yeah, even on the interstate, there was very little channel 19 traffic.
Okay. Well, interesting.
It used to be jam-packed.
Yeah, things have changed. Smokey and the Bandit, has gone out of fashion. But the thing is that here as amateurs, we deal with both the old and the new. I tell people we're living in the future right now. Yeah. The stuff that we're doing here in this TV studio would not have been possible just 5-10 years ago. So enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that we have modern conveniences, modern radios with spectrum displays and all of the bells and whistles of software-defined radio. But also we can honor the traditions and the old boat anchors, clean them up, fire them up, and get them up on the air. So we go the spectrum.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
All right. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
After the 2 years, after the grace period, after you you say you don't renew it after 10 years, do you have to retake technician as well?
Yes.
To retake all the tests?
Yes. Now, if for example, you had your technician and then you advanced to general class, and let's say you advanced to extra class. Cool, great. And then after 10 years go by, you don't renew it. And another 2 years go by and you don't renew it. At that point in time, you can get your extra class license back again by just taking the technician test again. And then they'll upgrade you all the way up to extra again. So if you held extra at one point and you let it go, you can get back in just by taking the technician test. You have to alert your volunteer examiners so that you want to do this, because they probably have to go about some special paperwork in order to make it happen, but that's the rules.
All right, thank you.
You betcha. Alrighty, I would say go home, but you're already home. So anyway, have a great night, and we will see you next week for Chapter 8, Licensing Regulations.
73.
73.
73.